Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all over the world. Thompson 777, Alpha here. Always, I got to retrain myself to say that every time. Somebody else had that idea, and I thought it was a great idea to say Alpha. A lot of things I talk about is trying to mentor men, and some of the things I do is not in line with what the rest of the world is thinking along those lines. So, wait for a few people to come on board. Just want to let you know this is the anniversary of 1 year of my freedom. Not 100%, probably 90%. I've been able to live my life the way I've been was able to prior. But it's kind of interesting how this is working out. So don't know how this is going to finally end up, but I'm still able to live my life like I had been previously, which is great. So what are you guys up to tonight? I got a lot of things to talk about. Did a controversial video to kind of point out that silver is kind of out of place right now and to just be careful. Honest to God, I don't care what you guys do. You know that. I'm just telling you how I think and the data that I use to go through it. People get so antsy, kind of like their Bitcoin stuff. They get all fired up. So anyways, I was looking at the returns since the beginning of this bull run when I had bought the majority of my precious metals and everything. And I'm looking at currently gold is about 44.6%. And remember, I'm holding a little bit over 70%. Platinum is up 34.7%. I'm holding 8%. And there's 20.6% of silver, and that's 72%. So overall, I'm up 49.5% for the physical metals. And that's the sell back price, not the spot or in fact, it's kind of interesting when you look at this, the sell back, they give you a premium. It's really interesting if you keep track of your data to see what's going on. I got so many things open. I'm trying to figure out where everything is here. All right, I'm back on. All right, so Jim Richter's here having a beer. Then he's going to hit the hay to kayak in the AM. Well, that'll be great. It's so humid here right now. Oh my God. We've had so much rain. I was finally able to get out there this afternoon. It didn't rain and I was able to mow everything. So that was nice. Pork ribs are $4 and $3 a pound in California. I had pulled out some country style ribs that I had in the freezer. Man, I've had some old stuff in there. And I cooked them the other day in the oven. Now, normally I do it on the grill, but it was a family pack too. And it was an interesting recipe. You put it in a pan and you cover it with aluminum foil. It's 2 hours at 300 degrees C. Then you take the aluminum foil off carefully. It's going to be steaming like crazy. And you dump the oil into a container, not down the drain. And then you put barbecue sauce on the ribs, stick it back in the oven at, I think it was like 275 for another hour. And then lo and behold, they are done. And I'm telling you what, they came out pretty good, except you don't get the charcoal flavor or anything else, but it actually was very digestible for someone that doesn't have a gallbladder. And then I think I've shown you a lot of my vegetables are starting to come out. So I've got, the yellow squash and zucchini, and I just picked a whole bunch more cucumbers. So been eating salads and everything else. It's fantastic. Yeah, I got a feeling food's just going to be outrageous. We'll see. Unfortunately, like lumber, somebody sent me a video about how the lumber prices are coming down. I've been monitoring that. I've seen Zero Hedge actually is following that very closely, and they're showing things that are starting to fold over now because people just stop buying when things get too expensive. They put projects on hold, and then things tend to correct. They might slowly come down, not collapse, but in any event, we're seeing that fold over. I don't know if you've seen the used car prices have really skyrocketed. And so that's very interesting too. There's just not enough of them out there for everyone. So supply and demand, apparently. It's not looking good in a lot of areas. Rents are going up all over the place still. There's just not lot of places to rent. So supply and demand again till they get a lot of stuff built. So it's going to be stop and start for a while. It's kind of interesting. Thought I had a text, but it's just informational garbage. So, and I apologize. Somebody had asked me to talk about depositories, whether I think it's a good idea. There's been a couple interesting examples. Last year, I talked about locally that, yeah, sorry, got something in my eye. They have these, I'll say the highest level of storage that you can get that's probably the safest is something called a depository. And I was using one in Texas I told you guys about. That company also, it's very large, and they also are like up in the Boston area, so they've got several different locations. That one is like if you have an IRA or something, I kind of recommend that. Well, you're kind of stuck with those kind of things. You can't really go to the next. But there are other ones that are below what I would call a depository. It's just a I can't think of what they called it now, but they had one here in Atlanta. And during the COVID lockdown, I called them up and said, hey, what's going on? Are people able to go in there and get their whatever they've got stored? I mean, you're basically renting a box and you put anything in there, and they've got, insurance that you can apply, but it's a very secure facility, but it's not necessarily inventoried by them. It's your responsibility to kind of do whatever. And it turned out that they were closed. They said, nope, nobody's coming in. And even the depository, they were shut for a while because they didn't have procedures for deliveries for anybody. And I was like, well, I don't understand this. It's like you just put the stuff in the mail. And some people might want to come pick it up. I can understand where that might be an issue, but you could just stick it on a cart and push it through the door or something. But I started looking at it, it's like, that's a bit of a problem if you can't get your stuff. And I don't know if you saw the article recently where the FBI had got a search warrant for one of these places that had a whole bunch of I don't know what you call it, like safe deposit boxes, but it wasn't with a bank. It wasn't with anything else. And again, nothing inventoried. They just had customer names for a box. Well, they thought that there was something notorious or whatever going on. And so they went and got a search warrant, and they basically confiscated like all the boxes. And it was really strange because they went back, Steve Leto, I forget what the name of it was, Leto's Law. He was covering this, and he said it was really weird because the search warrant didn't authorize them to do that. It didn't let you go off and get the boxes and basically confiscate it. And people are sitting there going, wait a minute, I've got my life savings in this thing, and you've just taken it, and they don't have a vehicle for people to come back and, get their stuff, a means for doing it. So there's been a lot of lawsuits and everything, and I don't know, how this is going to finalize. I've been trying to keep up with his videos, but he covers all kinds of different things. But anyways, it's kind of interesting. So the question is, what do I think about the depositories? Well, if you got your money tied up in like 401ks and you want to do like a self-directed IRA because you want to take some of the currency that you've got in there and you want to go buy some precious metals, you're kind of stuck with using a depository. Ultimately, though, the best thing to do is have it as much under your control as possible. And you got to worry about security and everything else. But I would definitely get segregated if you use a depository. Do not get, I forget what they call it, commingled or mixed or whatever. You don't want to do that. You want segregated. Pay a little bit more so that whatever you bought, you're going to get it back. And, keep good records of what you put in there. And at some point, you may want to just get the stuff out of there, even if it's in an IRA, and have it delivered and take the tax hit. Because if this stuff does go parabolic, it's probably better to pay the taxes on what you have right now, and then have the 100% earnings available to you later. So we'll see. Different things, different thoughts for everyone. So I don't know, however you want to look at it. The video I did today, I had a lot of comments from people, and they're like, you didn't talk about the gold silver ratio and everything. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. It's like I'm looking at how everything is moving in tandem, and then one thing sticks out that tells you that something's not right. So you have to realize when something sticks out, doesn't mean it's the right price. And when people talk about like lumber, that's a perfect example. It's like it will correct because people don't believe that's the value of the lumber, especially when it changes so dramatically from like October last year. I think it's tripled in most cases, just like chicken wings. Chicken wings have, doubled. That's not the real price of chicken wings. We know that. So you should know what's real and what's not. You should know what value is. And it's comparative. Otherwise, you're just imagining that everything else is not manipulated, only silver was manipulated. And now it would have to be the opposite way. Now, it's just really the fact is silver just is not truthfully valuable. It's just people have bid it up unnecessarily, and there's going to be a price to pay for probably the majority of the folks. So just keep an eye out, because it is troublesome when this happens. You have to be sophisticated. You have to know, it's the old saying, you have to know when to hold them and when to fold them. So Silverliner, are you two timing today? I don't know what that means. Are you two timing today? I got my nice colorful shirt on like it's Memorial Day or something. Got to wait for Father's Day on the 20th. That's the next holiday. Really don't have anything else. Well, the lumber thing was a little bit of a number of problems. They were missing some glue for like plywood and OSB. China, I guess, was having some shortages. The mills also had tried expanding. I think it was in 2019, and ended up everything kind of collapsed, the need for lumber, and so they laid off a bunch of people, and they just decided they weren't going to react this time. So right now, it's like we have to decide of what is going on. So I don't understand what this means. Dobbs, have you heard of Basel III? Yeah, I've heard of Basel III. Two videos in one day. Oh, well, this isn't really a video. This is my live stream. I got you. Now I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the Basel III, I've actually talked about multiple times. The jury is out on exactly how this is going to affect precious metals, because there's a number of different ways this can happen. I mean, it is, and it has been, the whole industry thing has been kind of cleaning up with a lot of the spoofing that was going on. We saw a lot of big fines. I think some of these records are kind of moving along, but you got to remember, some people, if they don't see a sure way to make money, they're just getting out. And so movement of the metals may not go up. It may be just, I don't know. We'll see. I've listened to a lot of videos on it, and no one is in agreement on exactly how this is going to work. So right now, I think it's going to be more wait and see. And just remember, they always leave back doors for everybody, and they always will grant waivers for people, till they can get it done. So this, even though we see these deadlines coming, they always can be manipulated and bypassed. It, like I said, waivers, everything else. So don't get all excited. So what do you think? What do you think about silver? Do you think the fact that it's jumped up and it's got the same return as the large silver miners, do you think that that's normal? Do you think, there's another possibility. It could be everything else could all of a sudden reset similarly. You could see like the silver miners all of a sudden make a major jump. And then you could also see that Gold and platinum and everything else might catch up, but more than likely, I think we're going to see the silver come back down, and actually you may meet in the middle, right? They may come down, the other thing's coming up. But right now, everything's out of whack. The raw silver can't be the same as what the miners are producing. There should be leverage on the silver miners. Yeah, Lynette Zhang, she, I used to watch a lot of her stuff, and then she'd get on there crying and trying to manipulate people. And she pushed everybody into the doggone, pre-1933 coins, which are humongously expensive, trying to, tell everybody that none of that would ever be confiscated or whatever. So I kind of lost following that. I really don't follow it at all anymore. Zero, nada. There's a lot of people I used to watch, but it was an echo chamber. That's another thing. It seems like the silver folks seek out anything that reinforces their thought process, and that's an echo chamber. You don't want to be part of that. You want to seek out people that are giving you other types of information that are I wouldn't want to say controversial, devil's advocate, or just data-based, not emotional based. So much of the silver space is emotion. They throw out all kinds of stuff. I just saw somebody comment as, yeah, silver really needs to be like 8-1. Well, historically, if you go back and silver was, when it was actually money, yeah, it did get kind of down to there, but we haven't had silver as money in forever. And if you looked at the last 110 years, the gold silver ratio has been like 50-1, not 8-1. In fact, I would argue when you look at the purchase price of gold and silver, which includes all the premium and everything, we're at 50-1 right now. So this is probably the point where you ought to start considering converting anyways. Now, can things kind of get out of whack? Yeah, I mean, people will, maybe clamor towards the silver, but remember, it comes down like a rock. It comes down like a rock. Silver is horrible, and it doesn't get the double bounce like gold does. So you get no warning. It's like next, turn around, you're back to $15 in a heartbeat, and that's too frustrating for most people. That's my notification to remind me to do the live stream, but I decided to do it earlier tonight. So that was kind of nice. I was half an hour early. Is this a better time for you guys? Sometimes I'm up just too late and then I can't unwind. So what do you think? Yeah, I was actually going to do 2 videos yesterday. Oh, yeah, let's talk about AMMPF. Are you guys following the information I'm putting out there? Because this is like a ground floor thing for like an Amazon or something else. This is actually quite amazing. I've got a feeling that the way we have been producing, yeah, I'll get back to you in a second, Silverliner. The way we've been, like drilling holes in the earth and in the ocean and everything, miles deep and fracking and, it's just terribly expensive and terribly problematic. And, especially with fracking, these wells deplete so rapidly. You spend so much money doing this. And then you got to have pipelines, and you got to ship the stuff by rail and then get it out to gas stations and everything else. After it's refined, it's got to go through refineries and then piped out again. This gets to be quite a bit of a problem. It's very difficult. Where when I looked at this anhydrous ammonia, it looks like they've come up with a way where these things can produce kind of like at gas stations. Even they can produce much more rather than having holes drilled in the Arctic and everything else. This stuff can be produced all over the place and not just locally, because it just takes generic things like water and air and creates this anhydrous ammonia. So it's very very interesting to me, that concept. So, the video I did today was getting a little more in depth, but it was talking about, they're talking about converting aircraft fleet to run off of this stuff because there's virtually no uh, noxious fumes that come out. I mean, when you see these contrails and everything else, I mean, this is going to be just, I forget what it is, nitrogen and water or something is the byproduct. But imagine automobiles and everything else kind of getting that way, but it seems like it's more along. Oh, and ships. They're trying to figure out a way to, take all these ships and get the fumes and everything knocked way down. So this is all, save the planet type stuff. But in a way, it actually kind of makes sense. Like solar kind of decentralizes the power grid. You've got it on each house, so you have it locally. If you could have generation plants, maybe in each neighborhood that you can go um, fill up your car and everything else. So there, I mean, when I'm sitting here thinking about this is like a game changer. I mean, the hydrogen type fuel that they've been trying to get to just seems to make sense. Um, yeah, ammonia. The videos I've been talking about is ammonia contains 3 hydrogen atoms. So they found that they can transport hydrogen at a very low, a more normal temperature, similar to like propane, versus hydrogen by itself. If you compress hydrogen, it's like minus 300 and something degrees. So propane is like minus 33 degrees. So that's the difference. And so you get a much denser fuel because the big tanks and everything, and there's all kinds of type of corrosion that happens with hydrogen on the tanks. So all that stuff is kind of bypassed. Yeah, Bick's weird. He's thrown out all kinds of stuff. If I've even talked about, and let's say, if we go to 25,000 for gold, you might get 500 silver, but I mean, the odds of gold going to 25,000, I mean, that just means bread's going to be $100 or something. So let's hope we never get to that, but we'll see. We'll see. So let's see. Yeah, so Silverliner, what we're talking about is, the Liberty. Um, let's see, there's actually Eagles, but they're 90% gold versus today's Eagles, which are, you actually have a full ounce of gold in there. So it's the pre-1933. You got to be careful because you're not even buying pure gold. You're supposedly, in theory, buying collectible type stuff. And that's why they're saying it'd be less likely a confiscation. But remember, there never really was a confiscation. There was a recall, and everybody was still able to hold 5 ounces per person. So, and the majority of the folks never turned it in anyways. Yeah, that's again, it's an echo chamber. So you got to be careful when people are throwing out these numbers because they're trying to go after the fear of missing out. And they're trying to push their overpriced silver onto people. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's just my calendar still going off. Sorry about this. I always like to make sure it's not the kids or something. It's not. Yeah, bushel of wheat. It used to be, let's see, was it a 10th ounce of silver per day or something for Roman soldiers? You had to go way back. So it might be an ounce of silver per week or something for a week's pay. Yeah, ammonia actually was this anhydrous ammonia. If you go look at years ago, you might even be able to find pictures on the internet. They had these big tanks towed behind tractors, and they were injecting that into the fields. And I think it had a dual purpose. One, it was fertilizer, but two, it was also a pesticide. It would end up killing things. So it's kind of an interesting concept. So Caterpillar was talking about trying to run their tractors on this stuff, but they ran into troubles because, and I covered that in the video today, so I don't want to necessarily repeat the whole thing, but I'm going to be talking about this for a while. But I just thought it was interesting. I brought this this new stock up, and I actually put it in the improved portfolio, and it's already up 19%. I don't want to say 20%, dang close to 20%. Yeah, the silver bugs, they have made it a religion, kind of like Bitcoin, same thing. It's a religion to them. They just think it's only going to go up, 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 up. It's so complex. So we will see what happens. You never know. And by the way, I've never been against silver. I just said put it in the proper proportion. So it's like if you just want gold and silver, do 80% gold, 20% silver. But if you want to throw a little platinum to spice things up, I put 10% platinum and take that away from the gold because I consider platinum and gold the same. And I think you're going to get there. Yeah, I don't know about theta and T fuel. I'll have to look that up. I only threw a token amount in there. This is just something that when I catch something early, I think it's kind of interesting. Yes. Did anybody watch? I put a link to the Glenn Beck video where he talked about the Weimar Republic. I forgot how you pronounce that. And he had a really nice overview of that. And unfortunately, we are going down a horrible path right now. Absolutely horrible path. The dollars that are being unleashed are incredible. And this is still just the beginning, folks. It's just the very beginning. Let's see. Watched a video of a local coin dealer, and the young woman mentioned in the past a silver coin exempted the holder from pauper law enforcement from the local cop. I'll have to look at that. So let me write it down. Silver coin. Just remember, a lot of this stuff doesn't matter because our current coinage, the stuff we're buying, the precious metals, are not the currency where they were in the past. So I don't know if these things, when you talk about a pauper law, I mean, that sounds like something from the 1900s. I don't know how that would apply today, since most people don't even know about gold, silver, platinum, any of that stuff. Dobbs, you keep it real. There's people covering every end of the spectrum. There's people saying we're in deflation right now, and some are saying inflation. From my point of view, I see inflation. Yeah, I was trying to think of what we would say that there's deflation right now. I'm not really seeing much of anything. If you look at the way the Fed measures things, remember they're playing some games in areas that they don't talk about food, they don't talk about energy. I forget what else, but the things that really matter to people, it seems like it's all going up. So we'll see. It'll all come out eventually, but it seems like we're on the right side of the trade. So my commentary says the only reason the banks and other shorts can keep silver down is because the masses have forgotten about silver and need many more people to wake up to sound money to squeeze the market to a new normal. Maybe, but I don't recommend you spending twice as much for the silver or whatever to get it. The opportunity was in 2018 when we had extremely low premiums, but the silver has always been considerably higher, like 3 times higher premium than gold. And I think it's just because it's you got to do 20 ounces to equal 1 piece of gold. So there's a lot more quality control in making 5 coins than there is 1. Yeah, that could be. Electronics, it's kind of an interesting thing. There was a book years ago turning silicon to gold, The New Alchemist, it was called. And I was involved in making integrated circuits way back in the early 80s. And it was quite interesting how we kept jamming more and more and more, and the functionality more and more and more for less and less and less. It was quite interesting. Most world currencies have lost against the US dollar for many years. US dollar will come down in line with the others. I have to go look at that. It seems like everybody's been devaluating about the same time. I mean, the only things that I've seen dramatically devaluate, it's been years, was China's currency. They dropped, it seemed like it was like 15% overnight one time, and that was like big news. But lately, I think the yuan was actually rising against the dollar, and that's causing some consternation. Yeah, the fourth turning is an interesting concept, and I'm a big believer in cycles. I absolutely believe that we go through cycles, and it seems pretty rational what that fourth turning is, or the fourth turning is talking about. It seems like our whole world is kind of devolving right now, and it's going to take something pretty substantial, if not like civil war or whatever, to kind of clean this back up and get back moving in the right direction. Or, uh, you know, we talk about a CME or something else to get people focused on, real problems, like trying to live and scratch out a living in, like 1800s time frame. That'll change a lot of people's mind of what's really important. I think people just have too much time on their hands. Yeah, I don't agree that silver is cheaper than gold historically. And I just talked about that at the beginning of this, where the historically over like the last 110 years, uh, it looks like the gold silver ratio has been right around 50. And, when you look at the purchase price, ignore this stupid, um, what do you call it? The price that everybody's quoting right now, the actual purchase price, which when you add the premiums and everything, then you get to the 50 to 1 right now. Anyways, it's kind of out of bed. That's been the biggest problem with silver, is those dang premiums really eat up any profits that you have. So you're gonna, and especially if you don't stick with the Eagles, you're gonna get killed when you go try selling back, because they just don't give you anything back. Now the bars actually do pretty well too if they're properly marked. That is a fact, Dobson. Oh, yeah, but what kind of silver do you buy? And then have you looked at, there's two prices you have to look at. You have to look at the buy price and the sell price. Well, the problem previously with ammonia, it was a fairly costly method of creating ammonia. And I talked about that in my video today. Now they've come up with a much less expensive way, and it's actually considered green because they can use, solar, and they can use windmills and everything else to generate this. So that's why it's being looked at very closely. This has actually been studied significantly over the past decade, and they've been working through those challenges of how they can try to implement this. So this has been coming for a while, and it's pretty high on the list of how much money they're going to put into this. Yeah, so look, Silverliner, I think you had asked a question earlier. Well, what if the whole grid goes down and we got to go back to gold and silver and everything? Well, truthfully, it'll be a decade before you even start thinking about using precious metals as money, when in fact you're just going to be trying to survive. I mean, good God, you're not going to have electricity, so you're not going to have refrigeration, everything. You're going to be bartering things. I'm not going to want anybody's gold and silver when I'm trying to scratch out a living and keep from freezing in the wintertime with no electricity. So I'm going to be doing my wood stove out there working my butt off. it's going to be different. You're going to be gardening, everything else. Life is going to just stop, and you're going to be just trying to survive. So a lot of people, if you're in the city and everything, I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm thinking that whether you got gold and silver, it's going to be low on the list for quite a while until society starts starting back up again. Yeah, so you say, but I would argue if there's no power, it's going to be a free for all. I mean, think of silver as your fractional gold. That's the only thing I think about. You're going to be holding some silver that you can maybe go buy a basket full of food if it's there. Um, but I think a lot of people, like I said, if we go down for a CME or an EMP or something like that, look, it's just kind of game over for probably 80% of the population within the first 6 months. So you think about that. You're not going to have communications. You're not going to have electricity. You're not going to have water. All this stuff is just going to be screwed up. 90% of people will still have power. And how is that possible with the CME that fries all the electronics? I think you better go do a little research. You keep forgetting that CME will take out solar, it'll take out the batteries, it'll take out everything. It just depends if you have spare stuff to try to, bring your electron. I mean, there's controllers, there's everything's electronic that controls your solar. I mean, I know a lot about my solar. This is not EMP or CME protected. That means if an EMP is coming, you got to disconnect everything, disassemble quite a bit, put it in a trash can with ESD bags. And then you've got to, no, a CME happens from the sun. The CME is a recurring thing that happens, every 150 years or so. It's a coronal mass ejection. I just did a video not that long ago talking about this, and we're kind of overdue for one right now. But I mean, I've got big things that are like this big, and especially for my battery controller down there, that damn thing is probably 150 pounds. I got two of those. You're going to take that thing down and try to protect it, and then you're going to have to wait several weeks to make sure everything's done before you put it back up there again. So it's a lot of trouble. And by the way, when they had the Carrington event, it set telegraph offices on fire. So we're going to end up having a whole bunch of homes likely catch fire because this huge amount of current voltage, everything that's induced from the sun, ends up traveling down the power lines into homes. The funny thing is, I've looked at a lot of studies about today's cars. They have a lot of shielding and everything on it, but I would actually look at the fact if we normally will get notification of a major flare from the sun, and the best thing to do, you got 2 days from when they notify you, if they actually will notify you, and you just go disconnect your battery, kind of take the two cables off, and then put a resistance between them to kind of drain everything out of the system, and then keep them connected together. When we have this thing, you can potentially come back and turn it back on. But if you take power off of any of your electronics, even if you don't have it in a bag or anything else, it will survive like 100 times the exposure. Why do people go to war? I mean, World War I, World War II, millions of people perished. That's where EMP comes from. One of the problems we have right now too is our magnetic field is very weak compared to what it was in the 1850s when we had the Carrington event. So if we were to have anything remotely close to the Carrington event, which I think they estimated anywhere from an X20 to X50, we would absolutely be screwed today. Now the sun just blows this, it just basically blows out of one of its holes this tremendous amount of energy. And if the earth is in the path of where that thing shoots out, we get toasted. Yeah, it's not going to help you much though if everything's fried. I mean, we're not going to have a lot of electricians running around trying to fix this stuff, so you're going to have to know how to do this. Yeah, weapon of indignation. Well, it could be the CME also. Well, we're at 41 minutes. Boy, that's gone fast. Guys are really lively today. "34 people and only 13 likes. Man, I've covered a gambit tonight. Man, I have some Japanese beetles attacking my beans, the pole beans. I hadn't even got beans on there yet. It just started blooming and they're all the way up to the top of the trellis. And I was expecting to have beans really quick. So I had to go out there with some diatomaceous earth. They have protection for all of this, but you know what? The protection is not for every single level. Go show me the level of protection that those CME EMP protection have. Most of the stuff is for like standard level things. So let's say that you have, and I forget all the different classes. You know, the X's are like, it's a logarithmic scale, but X is like way up at the top of this thing. And I'd be curious, but you know, what good is it going to do you if all your neighbors are down and all of the stores are down, all of the gas stations are down, everybody's down except for you? I mean, boy, I think you're going to have a lot of company. So I've got transient protection, the best I can get, but it's all in the specifications. Yeah, the Carrington event is the name of that was in 1859, 1856. I forget when it was. Yeah, so the only we didn't really have electronics back then, but we had Morse code, what is it? Telegraph, stretched all the way across the country. And it's a very interesting story. If you do a little bit of research, you'll find that people were noticed that there was a problem and that like some of the papers were catching on fire in the office. So they disconnected the batteries. They didn't understand what was going on. And all of a sudden they noticed that the telegraphs were still working, even though everything was disconnected. And it's because there was so much energy ionized in the air. Signals were still being passing, even though the cables were not connected. And then, you know, like I said, quite a few places actually caught fire because, you know, people weren't right there right then at the time and be able to disconnect everything. But there was a guy that was monitoring, wasn't he in Britain or something? He was the one monitoring the sun, and he noticed this event that had happened. And the timing was about the time where they had like aurora borealis, you know, almost all over the globe, where normally it's just the northern latitudes. But a lot of people don't, you know, this Faraday cage stuff, it's almost worthless when you think about it. What are you going to do? Put it over your whole house? Like I said, if you've got solar, you got these big old things that are connected on there, and everything is electronics. The best thing I can think of is to knock down poles, power poles coming into your neighborhood, so that you're not tied into those big long transmission lines coming all the way down. You just need to isolate, the short runs, and then you're going to be less likely affected. But you're going to actually have to pull them down. That's the only thing I can think of. I've thought about making some Teflon blocks right in your main when it comes in. You could actually stick that in there to create some isolation, but you got to remember it's going to be, probably hundreds of thousands of volts and hundreds of thousands of amps coming through this thing. Oh, so John Keller got him some AMMPF, actually, is what it is. AMMPF. Are we talking 10 years for first adoption? No, actually, the article in my video that I did today, they're actually trying to get airplanes on this ammonia within the next couple of years. So it's going to start being rolled out. Yeah, I wouldn't get too excited about cell phones because all the towers will be fried and everybody else's phone will be fried. Now, if you got like some little walkie-talkies, those would be the things that I would put in ESD bags so that you can at least communicate amongst your family. Some CB radios and everything would be a good idea. But a lot of this other stuff, you can just kiss it goodbye. Ham radios would be a good idea to have in bags. Bring it up, but it'll be weeks before you'll even be able to use anything because there's going to be so much noise because it's like ionizes our whole atmosphere. Yeah, this is pushing forward though because it's kind of a breakthrough. The fact that they can treat this more like propane, where hydrogen was a pain in the butt. But yeah, they've been working towards it because it's like one of the holy grails. But they've done more stupid stuff, like I was thinking about what is that stuff, the biofuels and everything. Those are astronomically expensive, where this is something that could be mainstream pretty quickly. Well, they're actually looking at some of these things for short spurt runs, the electric planes and stuff. But again, the biggest problem with the stupid batteries is it takes you, like overnight to charge the whole things. That's why I think your hybrids are the way to go. You got to have something to where you can get where you need to go. I mean, otherwise you're just limited to go get groceries and back. That's about it. I saw a teardown of the Ford Mustang Mach E, and man, I'll tell you, that was really disappointing when I saw how that was manufactured. So I think I'm going to wait for a couple generation improve because that just looked like they took a bunch of COT stuff and kind of bolted things together. It was very disappointing. Well, if you look at the video I talk about today, it looks like it's some kind of electrolytic conversion thing, and it is using either they're talking about using windmills and solar and everything to create the anhydrous ammonia, and then you can use like membranes and stuff to break out the hydrogen separately if you need to. But you could a lot of these things they're looking at how to just burn it directly rather than another conversion. Apparently, you can put about 10% of this into the fuel mix and burn it in your car right now. It'll work just fine. So, anyways, I think I'm going to wrap it up. We're right at 49 minutes, and we've covered a wide range of topics. I'm going to go wind down, see what's on the TV, and get ready for the next day. Solar powered vehicles. Silver Saber 82. I did a video today that talks about that. You ought to go watch my video. All these silver folks get all excited when I talk about silver like that, but I think there's probably a case that can be made that silver has jumped up way too fast and it's likely going to correct fairly significantly, or everything else has to catch up. But right now, silver has the same return as the miners and the large silver miners, and that makes no sense because large silver miners ought to have twice the return of silver. So that tells me that that is a what's the word? There's a breakdown somewhere. All right, John, you have a good night, everyone. So I hope everybody's treating you well. I hope you're doing well. Do the best you can. God bless.